Welcome to Kickin' the Habit. My name is Regine Edwards, and today we are going to talk about maintaining a smoke-free lifestyle. Now, what we're wanting to do at this point is to encourage us on our journey as a non-smoker, because now we should have overcome the issue of withdrawal symptoms, because the withdrawal symptoms go away within a week or two. So we're past that. We have pretty much overcome the environmental situation of the chemical dependency, and when you see something, you kind of want to smoke that cigarette, or you see someone smoking, you want to smoke that cigarette. We're a little bit past that, and we're really getting into more of a mental battle. As you've heard before, you know that people can stop smoking for years, and some event, usually something pretty catastrophic to them, has happened, whether it's a divorce or just a major transition in life that makes somebody want to go back and pick up that cigarette again. And usually that's not because they're craving the nicotine, the chemical dependency, because it's been 10 or plus years. So a lot of times it goes right back to the thoughts that are inside of our heads. So I want to go through some thoughts that we might tell ourselves. We want to replace those thoughts with something that's more conducive to us staying non-smokers. One of the thoughts that sometimes we can think is, I need one cigarette to take the edge off these cravings. Okay, and now that again is for a little bit earlier on, maybe when you are having a little bit cravings or you feel like you're craving it. Clear thinking says, cravings become weaker and less frequent with every day that I don't smoke. Even just one puff will feed the cravings and make them stronger. You know, you have all these receptors in your brain, and they're kind of, let's just imagine they're sticking up like this. And over time, those receptors go down, till you don't have any left. Now, what happens if you just smoke one cigarette? All those receptors pop back up. Instead of it just being one receptor that pops up, or two or three, all of them fire at the same time, and the craving becomes just as strong as if you had been smoking the whole time, even after 10 years of not smoking. So you want to avoid going there and taking that one puff. Smoky thinking number 2. Again, these are things that are cloudy in our brain that don't quite make sense. We want to get some clear thinking in there. It's been a long day. I deserve a cigarette. That's not a good thought. Clear thinking says, I deserve a reward after a long day, but there are better rewards than a cigarette. A favorite meal, a funny movie, or a hot shower will help me relax without ruining my quit attempt. Another thought that we might think, the urge to smoke is just too strong. I can't take it. Remember again, even the strongest cravings last less than 3 minutes. The urge will go away whether I smoke or not. And smoking now will just make it even harder for me to quit later. I can find something else to do, anything, until the craving goes away. Now remember, the craving will go away within a few minutes whether you smoke or not. Here's another smoky thought. I blew it. I smoked a cigarette. I might as well go ahead and finish the pack. That's smoky thinking. What I want you to do is to think of yourself as a non-smoker. You're no longer a smoker, and even if you mess up and you slip up and you smoke that one cigarette, you're still a non-smoker, and that next cigarette you don't have to smoke. The clear thinking is, I am still learning how to be a non-smoker. It's normal to make some mistakes, but I don't have to smoke that next cigarette. I can learn from this mistake and keep going. Here's another smoky thought. I can't deal with never being able to have another cigarette for the rest of my life. Clear thinking says, I only have to deal with today. Quitting happens one day at a time, sometimes 1 hour at a time. The future will take care of itself. Smoky thinking says, I am too grumpy without my cigarettes. I am going to do my friends and family a favor by smoking. Clear thinking says, my friends and family love me and understand that quitting smoking now is the best gift I can give them. Grumpy or not, I am not doing them any favors by continuing to smoke. Smoky thinking says, I am doing really well. Just one cigarette won't hurt. Clear thinking says, I have never smoked just one cigarette before. One cigarette always leads to another. I don't want to undo all my progress by smoking a cigarette now. Another thought sometimes we think is, it's too hard to quit smoking. I can't do this. Clear thinking says, quitting and staying away from cigarettes is hard, but it's not impossible. About 40 million Americans have quit smoking. If other people can do it, so can I. It's too important to give up on. Another smoky thought. I've been smoking for so long, quitting won't make a difference now. Now remember, I've told you before, I've had smokers that quit at the age of 72. It's not too late for you now. You start noticing the health benefits right away. Clear thinking says, no matter how long I've been smoking, my body will benefit from quitting. The healing process starts right away, and before long, I will start to feel healthier and look better. Smoky thinking says, I know people who smoked their whole lives and never got sick. You hear that? But clear thinking says it's true that some people may not get sick, but there is no way of knowing whether I will be one of them, and I'm not willing to risk my life. The only safe choice is to stop smoking now. Smoky thinking says, I have already cut down to a safe level. Clear thinking says, there is no safe level of smoking. Smoking less is a good first step, but there are many more benefits when I don't smoke at all. Plus, every cigarette that I smoke feeds the habit and makes it that much harder to quit. Now you've heard all of the clear thinking versus the smoky thinking. Let's now hear from our participants about how they have maintained a smoke-free lifestyle.
Well, the great thing about maintaining being smoke-free is now that I am smoke-free, I don't want to smoke because I realize how free I am. I don't have to worry about this addiction that's on my back. I don't have to worry about harming my children or myself or being in rebellion of, what the Lord wants me to do. I know for a fact that I'm better off without smoking, and that in itself keeps me.
Being smoke-free or having a smoke-free lifestyle is rather simple now because, number one, there's very few people, especially at home, at any that, I have to be bothered with smoke. Those that do smoke that come to my house are not allowed to smoke inside, and then just the smell of cigarette smoke now is abrasive. It just stinks. I don't like it at all. So it's really easy now to shun that lifestyle, for myself.
How do I maintain being smoke-free? Joyously. I am so happy to have gained the victory over that it's no chore to be smoke-free because my mind is made up and my body is cleansed from that urge to have the cigarette.
I love those responses. Again, that's just so real, so realistic, and you can really get in touch with how they were able to maintain a smoke-free lifestyle. I love how Kathleen said just the thought of no longer harming her body, no longer harming her child, and just simply doing God's will, that helps her to maintain a smoke-free lifestyle. And you hear Isaac, where he says, few people smoke now, so it makes it a little bit easier. Where I was doing most of the classes to help people quit smoking, during the time that I was the vice president of the Tobacco Awareness Coalition, they actually had a ban to where nobody could smoke in public places or even near a public place. So it had become more and more difficult for smokers to smoke and really be near those who may not want to be exposed to smoke. But not only that, it became easier for those who wanted to quit because not a lot of people were around them being that trigger of the person who's smoking around you. You know what I mean? So that's just such an interesting point that he brought out. And then you listen to Brenda. She was just happy to have gained the victory, and she didn't want anything to mess that up. And these are all things that help them to maintain the smoke-free lifestyle. Now listen to the next question, because this is really important. Are you ever tempted to smoke? Now you know that some of them haven't smoked in years. But the question is, even after 10 years has gone by and you're a non-smoker, will you ever be tempted again? Let's hear what they have to say.
Of course, there's always going to be times where you're tempted to smoke. You know, you get a familiar smell or a trigger and Satan tries to tell you, oh man, you know you missed that, but it's not worth it. And when you keep things in perspective and you weigh the Lord's way against the devil's way, you have to just be logical. You have to just not go with the emotion, because emotions will tell you anything.
Have I ever been tempted to smoke since I've quit, since I've overcome? No. It's not for me, thankfully.
I don't recall being tempted to smoke. I do recall, I guess it would be a temptation, the urge. I could recognize the urge, but happily, I'm familiar with it, and I happily can say no, and it's not a problem.
So Brenda said, yes, I am tempted to smoke, basically. But she said that when the urge arises, she tells herself, no, just a simple no, I'm not going to do it. And that has helped her to withstand the temptation. Now you listen to Isaac, he's just basically like, no, I realize it's not for me. I'm not going to do it anymore. So he's not even tempted to smoke. But you hear Kathleen, she says, yes, you're always going to be tempted to smoke. But I love how she responded to that issue. She said, you have to keep it in perspective. You have to realize that, there's the Lord's way and there's the devil's way. And she said, you can't follow your emotions, because our emotions can be illogical. That's interesting, but when you think about that, and sometimes emotions just take over. And if the craving is no longer strong, you can sit back and think about that logically. If possible, think about that logically. God wants to save you. The devil just simply wants to destroy you. Which one do you want to choose? The next question is, how did you feel when you relapsed? Only 2 of our participants relapsed, so let's hear what they had to say about that.
How did I feel when I relapsed? That second time I picked up that cigarette after 13 years, I felt kind of, number one, I felt kind of stupid, because I knew I wasn't going to continue on smoking. Didn't know how long, but I knew I wasn't going to do this. This wasn't something that, I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And so I felt really silly, because I'm saying, man, why are you picking up this cigarette? You know you don't want it. So it was, I wasn't self-deprecating, but I did know that, this is really a stupid move.
When I relapsed after 10 years of being smoke-free, I felt shameful. I felt annoyed with myself. I even felt that there was no hope. I felt hopeless, because how do you get free from something and then allow yourself to go back into it? That was really a hard thing to deal with.
Now, Isaac and Brenda shared their experience of relapse. You heard what Isaac said. He said, I felt plain silly. I didn't even want to smoke anymore, and here I am back smoking. You heard Brenda. She said she was annoyed. She felt shameful. She was hopeless. She knew it was hard. And when she relapsed, she became an undercover smoker, so that could make it even doubly hard, because she was doing this alone. So just know, if you're out there and you have relapsed before, know that, of course, it's a very shameful experience. It's very hard. You may get annoyed with yourself. You may think you're silly, but know that these 2 participants got back up, tried again, and now they have successfully quit, and they are non-smokers, and you can be too. Now, the next question that we asked our participants is, what benefits did you notice after quitting? Let's hear the good news about that.
When I first started quitting, the first week, I saw improvement in my lungs. I didn't have a heavy cough, because I kept a heavy cough for about a year one time. And when I quit smoking, my lungs cleared out. I didn't have heavy phlegm. I could breathe easier. I could exercise easier. Everything physically started to improve. And after a while, the withdrawals left. And so I didn't even, look for that as an alternative to stress. And it was kind of empowering, because if I didn't have like a chance to sneak out someplace, it wasn't the end of the world.
One of the first benefits I noticed was that I just did not want to pick up the cigarette, that freedom from having to have to go there and smoke. That freedom itself, that breaking of that chain, that was I think has been the greatest benefit of quitting smoking.
But the benefits that I noticed after I quit the second time was I was more aware of the sweetness that I knew was about my person. I didn't have to worry about whether anybody could smell cigarette in my hair, on my breath, on my clothes. There was no compromise with me, and I was just excited about that. So the benefit was being able to be honest with others and myself as I presented myself.
I like how, in essence, a few of them said that one of the benefits was not necessarily physical, but it was just empowering to now be a non-smoker, to know that they've accomplished something. But going to the physical, Kathleen said that she noticed that she could breathe easier. Before she had this nagging cough for so long, and now she no longer has that. She also mentioned that she could exercise better. She can breathe better, so she can exercise better. So she noticed that benefit. Also, you listen to Isaac. I love how he described it. He said the chain was broken, that he had freedom. It's almost like when you are addicted to cigarettes, or any addiction for that matter, you feel like you're in bondage or you're a slave to that thing. And it must be such an exhilarating feeling. Oh, I know, it's an exhilarating feeling to know that you're no longer a slave to that thing. You're no longer in bondage. So for him, that was a benefit. And for Brenda, she said that just being more aware of how good she smelled. There was a sweetness about her. I thought that was so cute how she said that. There was a sweetness about her. And it was something that she didn't want to compromise. Now that's encouraging. And this is something that I want you to do. As a non-smoker, I called you a non-smoker. As a non-smoker, I want you to start focusing on all the benefits that you're receiving on a day-to-day basis. Keep a journal, keep a log, and put down the things that you are noticing. If you're starting to smell better, taste better, touch better. Everything that you're noticing, from just feeling better about yourself. You want to write these things down, because that's what's going to encourage you to keep on going. If you're just thinking about how much you miss having that best friend or that thing to do with your friends, you're going to be thinking about the cigarettes and not about all the wonderful benefits that you're experiencing now as a non-smoker. Let's look at the next question. Now, this next question, I asked them especially for you. I asked them, what are your final thoughts? If there was anything that you wanted to tell someone who wants to be a non-smoker like you, what would you say to them? Let's listen to the words they have, especially for you.
For anyone that has the habit, or has had the habit, you should realize that God will ultimately help you if you want that help. If you really want to quit, you can quit. For those who have not picked up cigarettes, don't pick them up. It's something that is very difficult to defeat, even when you think you don't have a habit. It's a habit. You know, I was blessed not to really have, you know, great withdrawals, or at least withdrawals that I felt. But that doesn't say that I wasn't hooked, because while I smoked, I smoked. So regardless of how I felt about, or how I think, or even how I've spoke about smoking, while I was smoking, I was hooked. And God just blessed me to overcome, because it is something that was not meant for mankind to do. It's not part of his plan. And he will bless you to defeat any of the deceiver's stratagems to kill you.
I can say to encourage anybody, if you have the problem of smoking, you can gain the victory just by asking God. He will give it to you. But if you don't have enough to believe that, then seek out help. Don't be afraid to say, I need help with this. There are agencies, there are people among you that can help you to get over that slavery of smoking.
If I could tell somebody who is caught up in addiction, smoking, anything, the only thing I would really say is to go to God, because that's the only person who can free anybody of anything. And to realize that you have an option. You're not stuck. This is not something you have to be doing. You don't have to feel like you're missing anything either. You can be freed, whole, and it doesn't have to be a loss.
Wasn't that beautiful? Again, that message was special. It was for you. And just to sum it up, not to add to or take away from what they said, but they said, go to God. God can help you. God can give you the victory. I was listening to a message recently. It was kind of funny. The speaker entitled the message something like, how big is your butt? I know it makes you laugh, but this is serious. The person who was speaking said, a lot of times when we have cravings or we're dealing with cravings, we say something like this to ourselves, and I'm changing it up because she was talking about overeating or something like that. Picture in your mind, I want to quit, but I'm too tired. I want to quit, but I deserve a cigarette. I want to quit, but I just can't imagine going forever without a cigarette. I want to quit, but I just don't have enough self-control. She went on to say something like, well, I kind of added this in there, but because it just kind of goes along with it. But she went on to say, God's butt is bigger. Now, I'm not trying to be facetious here. Let's go to the Word of God. We want to look at God's butt being bigger. Go to Genesis 8 and verse 1, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. But I'm really serious when I say that. In Genesis 8 and verse 1, it says, but God remembered Noah and every living thing and all the cattle that was with him in the ark. If it wasn't for that but God, would they have been forgotten? Wouldn't they have died with everyone else? But God's butt is bigger. Let's look at another text. I have Genesis 50 and verse 20, and it reads, but as for you, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good. Again, God's butt was bigger than the evil that was meant against me. Let's look at another text. We have 1 Samuel 23 and verse 14, and it reads, and David abode in the wilderness and strongholds, and remained in a mountain in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul sought him every day, but God delivered him not into his hands. Do you feel like the temptation to smoke is looking for you every day? Just remember, God's butt is bigger, and he won't deliver you into those hands. Another text is found in Psalm 49, verse 15. And it reads, "But God will redeem my soul from the power of the grave, for he shall receive me." Now that's just very clear. His power will deliver your soul from the grave that can come at the end of smoking, and that's not what we want. We don't want to go that way. Let's look at another text, and this is found in Psalm 73, verse 26. And that reads, "My flesh and my heart faileth, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever." Let God be your strength. Amen? Let's look at one more text, Romans 5 and verse 8. And it reads, "But God commendeth his love toward us, that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us." Now I want you to remember that little analogy that we just put forth there. You may have a lot of buts. You may have a lot of questions in your mind. Is this something that you can really do? I want you to remember that the buts in the Word of God, when God intervenes, there is healing, there is deliverance, there is the entrance into a whole new life you never thought was imaginable. Now, remember, when you've looked at these personal testimonies of all the participants, you see that they had ups, they had downs, there were relapses, there were struggles, there were tears, but they are non-smokers, and you can be too. My final thought with you is, don't give up. If you lose a battle, you do not have to lose the war. God is on your side. He wants to see you live and live a happy life. The devil just wants to destroy you. Learn to satisfy that craving within with God himself.